You're listening to the Monday Night Community Show with Daniel on BRFM.
This is the Daniel Monday Night Community Show on demand through YouTube. Thank you very much for choosing to listen to us through this method. If you'd like to keep up to date with when I add new interviews, then subscribe to this channel.
We present Given in Evidence by John Fryer with Emma Hounsell, Ellen Jackson, Jeff Bainham and Zig Stanieszak.
If, and it's a big if, Alice, he did do any of the things you've suggested, he could be anywhere across the planet. If he did go abroad, he could himself be dead by now.
It's hopeless, isn't it?
With the information you've explained to me, it's not going to be easy. And even if you did find him, what could you possibly hope to gain? Someone who at the time the rest of the North London community would rather forget. Have another cup of tea. Oh, and I got some Victoria sponge. I was going to eat it all myself, but as you're here and we were celebrating your promotion.
DCI Williams died childless. Did you know that?
I didn't. But it doesn't surprise me.
He was married, never divorced. Seemed from what I can gather to genuinely love his wife. But they never produced an heir.
It's not illegal, Alice, to be childless. You may decide not to have children.
But DS Cake did have 3 children and was divorced twice.
I know there is a reason you're telling me this.
Cake had 2 sons and a daughter.
That would make 3. And the wives?
The 3rd one outlived him.
Good for her. Did she get the house?
Got the house, but not his files.
His files?
Yes, his files. Apparently, he was a prodigious note-taker. Williams, I believe, asked you to type up his notes. But what about DS Cake?
It was...
a long time ago?
Yes. Not that I recall.
I know he didn't. He typed up his own. At home. Kept his own files. Under lock and key.
Really?
Michael Cake seems to have been estranged from his first and second wives, and both of his sons. But his daughter, he was always close to.
I never met his wives or children.
That's what I thought. However, in his will, he left his house to his 3rd wife. His previous houses had been sold with each divorce. He also left money to his children accordingly.
Good for them.
But to Joanne, his daughter, he left his life's work, a key to the filing cabinet, and instructions not to open it. Until 10 years after his death.
I'm guessing his death was 10 years ago.
Last January.
And?
One of the files is headed Peter Clarence.
Deborah Ann Jones, 64 inches in length head to toe, weighing in at 110 pounds. You were right. She was strangled. The thumb and finger indents clearly visible around the neck and throat.
Time of death?
Rigor mortis had started to set in.
After dark, then?
Yes.
So he was calculating, waiting until it would be difficult for any witnesses to see him.
When did she die, please?
It was a warm night. Her body temperature was 26 degrees at the time of examination this morning. Average temperature for a human being is 37.5 degrees Celsius, losing 1.5 degrees for every hour afterwards until reaching that of the local environment.
You don't have to speak it all out loud.
I'd say between 10 and 12, more precisely 11 o'clock last night. Shall I go on?
Please.
Also, lividity in the form of dark purple discoloration on her arms, legs and sides, as well as the crown of her head on the left side. Blood after death, following gravity, pools under the skin. How was she found?
On her back.
She was transported after death, lying on her left side, then set down in the field.
Could her knees have been brought up to make her fit into the boot of a car?
Yes. Has she been identified yet?
Her father this morning.
Anything unusual?
15-year-old girl found murdered? Sadly, no. Not as unusual as it should be.
I meant about her person.
As I said earlier, no sexual activity, nothing under her fingernails, only...
Yes?
Oil. Small drops on the palms of her hands and a drop on her forehead.
Oil?
Oh, yes. Mostly dried in now. but still there.
What kind of oil?
Cooking oil, Inspector. Vegetable oil, to be precise.
What are you thinking?
He anointed her.
He did what?
The oil. Palms and forehead. He anointed her after death. Cooking oil was possibly all he could get. Now, why was that? WPC Jenkins, you can step outside now if you want to. The good doctor is about to cut this young lady open. We need to know if she was pregnant or not. Goes to motive.
I think I'll leave now, sir.
Right. Let's see what her insides tell us. I'll commence the Y-shaped incision just here.
Peter Clarence, as you said, had a charge sheet as long as your arm. Petty theft, assault, GBH, drugs, even smashing up telephone boxes. The whole family were the same. His father, in and out of prison so often that even he joked he had a 7-day-a-week pass. His mother, Iris, seems to have been the only stable one in the family, but the daughter, Lorraine, was almost removed by social services on several occasions because they thought she was unstable and not fit to be out on the streets.
It's easy to be liberal, Alice, if the likes of the Clarences never touch you. If you never come into contact with the true villains of this world, you can always call for their rights. But what if you have to live with them, next door to them, be intimidated by them? Then see how liberal you are. Even those that consider themselves calm and moderate can change when their backs are up against the wall.
Do you remember them? The Clarences?
Vaguely. 75. It's not exactly yesterday. Just out of interest, Michael's files, how many years after he left the force were they written?
He wrote them and kept them up to date at the time. I did wonder if he had been planning on writing a book, his time in the police, that kind of thing. He wouldn't have been the first, or I suspect he won't be the last.
And that was the reason you think his retirement fund?
There is nothing in his files to suggest a future writing career. The files contain copies of all the information that was available to the investigating officers at the time. It's the official file that's a bit thin.
In what way?
The official file on Peter Clarence is an account of his disappearance and his criminal activity, as I said before.
Maybe there was little else to put in it.
Then DS Michael Cake's version refers to another case.
He mugged an old man. Such things have been known to happen. It's not just us old ladies that have to worry.
A case with the letters D-A-J.
Right, shut up and listen. The victim, Deborah Ann Jones, found in a field just outside of Hemel Hempstead, 6 o'clock this morning. Strangled, anointed with oil, crucifix on a chain missing. Silver, we believe, from around her neck, given to her by her parents following her confirmation last year. Hopefully, find the necklace, we'll find our killer. Possibly. Deborah was a good girl. She didn't do drugs and she wasn't pregnant. As far as we know at this point, she didn't have a boyfriend, according to her parents. She didn't even know boys existed. She went to an all-girls Catholic school, St. Mary's. She had no known enemies. Her friends and teachers all speak very highly of her. She doesn't appear to have fallen into a bad crowd. She seems, on the surface, to be everyone's ideal teenager. Right, Collins and French. I know you know that part of Finchley well after last year, so start on the door-to-door, especially around the school and surrounding streets. Smith and Harris, the High Street.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, Jenkins, what is it?
With all her friends being girls, they might speak to me more easily than...
Than some middle-aged fat bloke, you mean?
I didn't put it like that, sir.
Yeah, be quiet, all of you. I'm afraid I've no grieving widows for you to comfort this afternoon, WPC Jenkins, so continue with your typing.
DCI Williams? Gov?
Shut up. A real policeman's here.
Just in from forensics. A match on the tyre print found at the scene. Going through the gate and into the field, there were regular tracks from the farmer's tractor. But to the right of the gate, from the turn-off, from the London side of the motorway, were clear prints of a vehicle, not that of farm equipment. Also, flecks of paint on the gate into the field. Must have scraped the side of the car as he drove away. The driver might have panicked and made a hash of it. We also have an idea on the tyres for the vehicle. 57mm white wall. For those not up on such things, it's a road tyre that has a white, thick ring on the outside of the rubber, giving the wheels a very distinctive appearance.
There can't be many of those in Finchley, sir.
Can you give the bullet points, DS Cake?
The car we're all looking for is a red Ford Cortina Mark II 1300.
Deborah Ann Jones was the name of a teenage schoolgirl missing in Finchley, found not far up the M1 just outside Hemel Hempstead. Now this was a case that you must remember. It was all over the newspapers at the time. Williams and Cake, the lead officers, were based at your station. You were even there at the time. I checked.
Did you?
Michael Cake's file lists everyone that worked on the case.
I was very junior.
You must have made an impression.
I would be surprised.
Didn't you start to move up the ladder after that? In fact, this case was when it all began for you.
As you know, Alice, lots of people were involved in murder cases back then.
They still are.
Promote and push was the attitude in the 1970s.
Which was one of the things that made your progression so strange.
Perhaps we should change the subject now.
For a case that had no successful conclusion, you did very well out of it. Especially as you personally were so involved.
I would prefer to discuss a different case, to be honest with you, dear. With time pressing as it is and that I have to go out soon.
In that case, I'll move along. You see, a certain young WPC, on her way home, passed the Clarence family home on Whitbread Road by St Mary's Catholic Church at about the time of evensong, the very bells where the faithful are called to prayer. And although the Clarences were known for being a bit rough, the father, George, when he wasn't inside for one botched crime or another, usually dragged his family to every service, every week, much to the annoyance of his children.
Come on, keep up. We're gonna be late. It's the story of Abraham and God telling him to sacrifice his only son today.
Then to his squabbling teenage son and daughter, he adds,
Seeing you two, I understand exactly what God had in mind, and why Abraham agreed to go along with it.
God, of course, in the Bible, didn't insist that Abraham kill his own son. It had been no more than a test. The bickering kids, however, were sick of the old man dragging them day after day to the church across the road.
Close the front door. Keep up.
The daughter, Lorraine, slams the door, but the latch is down. And as the family runs to the church, the young WPC notices the front door is ever so slightly ajar.
Oh, excuse me.
But she is too late. The family are inside and the service begins. Looking around to see if there are any neighbours to keep an eye on the property until the Clarences return, our heroine then sees something else. A Ford Cortina. The colour is red, a slight dint on the right-hand side, below which was a layer of dried mud around the wheel hub. A thick white line that follows the circumference of the car's wheels. All corresponding with the description that the forensics team had found at the entrance to the field where Deborah Ann Jones's body had been located. Looking from the church to the house, and then back, our feisty female hero makes a fateful decision. She could call in her superiors, let Williams and Cake investigate and take the credit, leaving her with more typing and filing for years to come. Or she could take the plunge herself. She then heads for the slightly open front door. Walking up the path to the front door, she stops, slowly pushing it open, just intending, I think, only to take a quick look inside. Initially, the doorway seemed dark. Then as the light spreads into the house, she sees stairs leading up, a bit of a corridor to a small kitchen and a couple of doors to the dining and living rooms. Nothing special, until she looked at the table just inside the door.